1 Hour, 1 Life, a multiplayer role-playing simulation, is exactly what it says on the tin. Each life in the game lasts 1 real-life hour, with each minute representing a year of your life. If you reach 60 years old, you die of old age. However, you're not likely to make it that far most of the time. Survival is a lot of work in this fast-paced world, and simply finding enough food to not starve is a struggle. When you first spawn into a new life, you're a helpless baby born to a random female character of childbearing age somewhere in the game world. That's no NPC. Every character in the game is actually another player, and you'll be dependent on them for the first few minutes of your life. Just like in real life, you don't get to decide your gender, the color of your skin, or even your name. Your mother gives you that. Working together with your family, you try to build up a civilization that will stand the test of time. Each family starts with a single Eve, a female character that spawns in at a random location in the world at 14 years old instead of as a baby. It's up to her to find a livable place to settle down and start gathering food before the babies start arriving. Yes, people in this game apparently reproduce asexually, and any female character of childbearing age may be surprised with a baby whenever a new player joins the world. Survival is difficult and requires the cooperation of everyone in the family, but if you get lucky, and if everyone chips in, you might just build up a thriving city. But no matter how successful you are, you're not likely to see whether your family succeeds or dies out, because with each life you are born into a new place, and the world is so vast you're unlikely to find another group within a single lifetime. Still, now and then you do get born back into a group you've been a part of before, and it's amazing to see how far things have come since your last life. Community. The really unique thing about this game is how critical it is to work together with other players towards a common goal. And the surprising thing is how well it works. When I first heard about 1 Hour, 1 Life, my immediate reaction was, heck, all it'll take is a handful of dedicated trolls and the whole game will just disintegrate. But in practice, by and large it works out really well. People have fun role-playing their characters. Survival is so difficult, especially in the earliest stages of a civilization, that there's no time for griefing. Because you only get 1 hour in each life, there's an inherent motivation to do something useful with that life. And before you're even old enough to hold a weapon or otherwise do any damage, you've already had to invest a considerable amount of time just to survive that long. Sure, once you're old enough and your society is advanced enough to create weapons, you could just kill everyone in the town, but why would you? Every single player in that town is bound to die in at most an hour anyway, so they haven't lost much of anything. There's really not that much harm a griefer can do. Other factors limit griefing as well. There's a curse system. If someone is engaging in antisocial behavior or even just being rude, you can curse them. If enough people curse someone, they will spawn far away from civilization in a separate place just for trolls for at least the next few lives. Over time, as long as you put in the effort to survive more than 10 minutes per life, your curse level decreases, so you get another chance eventually. But for most trolls, several hours of being kept apart from honest players will be too frustrating to bother with again. And to prevent misuse of this system, each player can only curse someone once every couple of hours. Finally, there's the simple fact that the game isn't free. It isn't even particularly cheap. At about $20, someone would either have to be very motivated or have a significant amount of expendable income to bother buying the game just to harass other players. That's not to say that there is no griefing in the game. Far from it. Murders do happen, and trolls do appear from time to time. I've heard stories of lone griefers who wiped out entire villages. There's also no filter on chat, and while most players are polite, some people do use some pretty awful language. And I've even heard of some people mistreating other players based on in-game skin color, which is just ugh. But in the handful of hours I've been playing the game, I've personally yet to run into any of this. I did get stabbed once, but it was in character. I overheard a plot and was killed for knowing too much, and the rest of my family immediately avenged me and cursed the offender. The world is massive, and the cursing system is usually enough to keep the unpleasant players away from those who are there to have fun and make progress. The overwhelming majority of players are a delight. A lot of people will even take part in a bit of role-playing, teaching their children skills and giving them jobs to do. This is one of my favorite parts of the game. At the end of the life cycle, you'll often see an elder call their younger relatives to them to pass on their clothes and items and give their descendants some last-minute instructions before passing on to the next life. Nice touches. There are a lot of little things to enjoy in this game. I've already mentioned the role-playing, but there are also plenty of mechanical aspects to the game that add to its charm. If you want to know how well your family did, you can look up the family trees on the game's website. Your ability to speak is also tied to your age. You can type one character per minute or year you've been alive. When first born, all you can really say is F for feed me, and if you try to type more, your little baby character starts crying. As you get older, you can express more and more coherent thoughts until you reach old age and you can talk everyone's ear off. Although character names are totally controlled by other players and your Steam username never shows up in the game, you can add a few people as friends and spawn in together as twins, triplets, or even quadruplets. But, of course, unless you get very lucky with your spawn, it's not likely that so many babies at once will survive. Temperature is an important factor in the game, and your body temperature has a huge effect on your hunger. Run around naked in the snow or fully clothed in the desert, and you'll need to eat almost constantly. But manage to find the appropriate clothing for your area, and you'll rarely need to eat at all. There's also motivation to eat a variety of foods, since doing so increases your maximum hunger level and enables you to survive a bit longer. Finally, there are some unique visual touches. The entire game was created by a single developer, Jason Rohrer, and he hand-drew all the art. That includes the information in the display at the bottom of the screen, and when the display changes, the previous image doesn't disappear completely. Instead, it looks like it was written in pencil and then erased, leaving a slight impression of what was there before, which only very slowly fades away as the display continues to change. I love those sorts of little touches, and it's well suited to the hand-drawn style of the game. Pitfalls and downsides. Of course, no game is perfect, and this one definitely has its share of problems. The biggest issue for me are the controls. They are just awful. Aside from chatting, everything is controlled by the mouse, including movement, and there's just no reason for that I can see. You can't use WASD or the arrow keys to walk, you have to left click. The problem is that aside from movement being really wonky and uneven, left click is also the button for picking up or interacting with an item on the ground. You'll find yourself frequently picking things up by mistake, and then finding you can't put it back down because you or someone else is now in the way. And item clutter on the ground is also a significant frustration. Each world tile can only hold one item, no matter how tiny, and you need a lot of items. You quickly wind up with a massive number of random things strewn about the place, and you have to walk a lot to find the one thing that you need. Eventually, you are able to make containers to better organize things, but that really takes a long while, and many civilizations never get that far. The learning curve is also really steep, which wouldn't be too much of a problem, except the pace of the game is pretty frantic. You don't have much time to figure things out, especially in a new civilization, before your lack of knowledge becomes fatal, and a trip to the wiki before playing is strongly advised. Tips and tricks. If you do decide to try out 1 Hour, 1 Life, these tips might just save you, and your family. 1. Read the wiki. Seriously, read the wiki. You don't have to read the whole thing, but at least get the basics down before you jump in. There's a tutorial the first time you play, but it doesn't help as much as it ought to. Especially now that the game is new on Steam, there's a huge influx of new players who don't know what they're doing, and being a bit more knowledgeable right at the start will make a huge difference. 2. Aside from the wiki, don't be afraid to ask other players for help. Especially for more complex tasks like smithing, having another player show you what to do step by step is likely to be more useful than just reading the wiki, and you're more likely to remember how to do it the next time around. Before you know it, you might find yourself designated the town baker or compost maker. 3. Don't get attached to your characters. Each life is a chance to learn a little more and try to make some kind of mark on the world, but the absolute longest any character will live is 60 minutes, and the majority of lives will end before you're old enough to even pick your own berries. If you die early, don't get frustrated. This game is iterative, and each time you play, you will become more experienced and better able to survive. Take each death as a lesson, laugh at your folly, and move on to the next one, and you'll have fun. If you can't do that, you're not likely to enjoy this game. 4. Be careful about natural resources. The game doesn't do a good job of teaching players this, but many, perhaps most of the resources in the game can be completely depleted and never come back if the players aren't careful. For example, if you trap a rabbit before there is a baby rabbit at the den, no more rabbits will ever spawn at that den again. Ever. Other things to watch out for include not harvesting milkweed before it's fruiting, always saving a crop of wheat and a field of carrots for seeds, and watching out for water depletion. ponds, and later wells, will slowly refill if you leave a bit of water in them, but if you deplete them completely, they'll stay dry forever. Completely depleting any of these resources can doom your civilization, no matter how advanced it is, so be careful. Also, take note of finite resources like clay. Don't waste clay making adobe walls, because there's only so much available and there are more important things to make from it. Ask your fellow players for more tips on managing resources. Conclusion. Overall, I think the game is worthwhile for certain types of players. If you can tolerate the steep learning curve, the frantic pace of the game, and the controls, which, to be fair, will probably not be bothersome to everyone, there is something unique in here which can be a lot of fun to play. It's a game that can generate some interesting stories. The sense of accomplishment when you leave a significant mark on society is massive, and the slow but steady sense of progress in the world as a whole is impressive indeed. Be aware that despite the game being fully released, it is still being actively worked on and added to, so some of the information in this video might become inaccurate with time. If you've noticed any mistakes or out-of-date info in the video, please leave your corrections or updates in the comments, and I'll pin the most helpful ones. Thanks for watching my review of 1 Hour, 1 Life, and if this game isn't your cup of tea, don't worry. I'll be back soon with another indie game to show off, and that one might just wind up being your new favorite game.